Welcome to Mom Life Handbook and the very first episode of 2025. I'm so excited for us to kick this year off together. It is going to be full of so many good things, not just for Mom Life Handbook as a brand, but in the ways that I plan on being able to support you as we enter this new year and as we find our way through it. I'm really excited for this to be a time where we bring a lot of intention into your life so that things feel a lot more purposeful, fulfilling, and rewarding as well. I feel like that's something that's really been missing from our lives as busy moms. And this is a year where that's all going to change. And I feel like I know for me, coming off of winter break and all the time that my family spent together, and life just kind of kept rolling for the week or so after that. And I just feel like I know I haven't had a moment's pause to be able to just process everything that just happened, let alone feel grounded enough to confidently move forward into this new year with any semblance of a plan or a vision. Like my head's not even there yet. Life has just been moving so fast. So I wanted this to be an episode where we look at what does it look like in practice to create not just breathing room in our day, but for ourselves emotionally. I feel like that is where things have really been heightened lately. And to be able to be clear on what we can do to support ourselves when life's been moving fast and we haven't had a whole lot of time to collect ourselves. What can we do in the moment, create that space for ourselves because it's so needed. It's essential to our success and therefore our family's success. And especially as I know right now we're heading into the winter months, there can be a lot of cabin fever. The family can be spending a lot of time together, whether it's you have inclement weather days or you're just not out and about as often as you would be, whether it's after school or on the weekends, just because the weather's less than ideal. But also like over summer break, right? Where the kids are home a lot more. It can be way too hot outside to actually be spending a whole lot of time there. And it can leave everyone kind of stuck in the house together. And that can be a lot. And so I wanted to think about, all right, we can't necessarily control those circumstances, but what we can do is make different choices and kind of shift the way we approach things to be able to still get that breathing room in a realistic way. So I have 3 things that you can be doing when you feel like you just need a moment's peace, but it's really hard to find it. The first is to disrupt your pattern. A lot of the times when we are caught up in these moments in our life where it's just moving fast, we can't catch a break, we have to do something to disrupt that pattern. And I know that it can feel like most of that is beyond our control because truly it is. But at the same time, there are patterns that we tend to fall in when we get in these places of feeling stuck that we can pinpoint, all right, what am I doing that just feels like the same old all the time and could also be contributing to the frustrations that might be mounting in my household. So disrupting the pattern can look like, taking the family outside for even just 5 minutes, get some fresh air, get some sunshine if you're lucky enough to have that, like even just that natural light, even if it's cloudy, it's still going to be different than what you're getting filtered through your windows in your house. So disrupt the pattern of constantly being inside. I know that for my kids, sometimes it is like pulling teeth and it just has to come from a place of being incredibly clear. Like this really matters. We've got to disrupt this pattern. I know my whole family will benefit when we do. For me to stick to my determination to get us outside, and 10 times out of 10, not even 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, just those 5 minutes outside, I'm trying to convince the kids to get back inside, you know? So if you can have that end in mind, it really will help you stick to it when the kids are like dragging their feet and saying they don't want to go out. You can definitely do what you can to make it fun. And I've even told my kids, I'm like, you don't even have to move out there. If you just want, we can get a bunch of blankets and a cozy book and a mug of hot cocoa and go sit outside for 5 minutes before we come back in. Like whatever that takes, if it's hot outside, is it a water balloon fight, turning the sprinkler on, like what is exciting to them? If you can layer that piece in just very quickly and easily, it can make all the difference for their cooperation. But truly, I think sometimes we can just say confidently as parents, this is the plan. This is what we're doing. We'll be back in 5 minutes. I'll set a timer. I'm telling you, that is the ultimate pattern disruptor right then and there. Another example of this, though, could be taking an everyday activity and just doing it in a different location. So maybe instead of having dinner at the kitchen table, you set up a picnic in the kitchen. Or instead of your child brushing their teeth in their bathroom, you take them to the kitchen sink and they brush there. Literally anything you can do to disrupt the patterns can just pique curiosity for our minds and snap us out of that kind of default setting that we're stuck in. And that goes for us too. It doesn't just have to be about the family doing something different. What can you do that's a little bit different for you that helps make something feel fresh, new, and more interesting? So think about maybe the parts of your day that you're really dreading. What could you be doing right before you have to do that task? Or what could you do to make it more exciting to get a task done? Just how can you disrupt that pattern? It's so important. The second thing that I have found that's really important for creating that emotional breathing room is prioritizing connection over anything else. And you get to decide what that means for you. Maybe you're feeling disconnected from yourself. Okay, how can you carve out 5-10 minutes for just you to be able to connect with yourself? How can you connect meaningfully with your partner? Maybe it's saying like, hey, tomorrow morning, let's have coffee together. Or maybe you just make the coffee and you pop back in bed with 2 mugs. Connecting with our kids is so important. We get so caught up in the parenting and the determining what's next and running the routines and trying to convince our kids to do what we need them to do. When we take the time to connect, it brings out that humanness in us and it just softens everything. This could be as simple with your kids as making sure that over anything else in your day, you set aside 15 minutes to play a game together. It could be a card game, board game, puzzle. Maybe you have a game system and you want to play like Mario Kart as a family. I know we love doing that. What can you do to just have those touch points in your day? I know that yesterday I was on my own with the 2 kids all day. And by the end of the day, I had it with the older one just constantly pushing the buttons of the younger one. And I was reflecting on it this morning about why that maybe had happened. And the thing that popped in my mind was that the younger one had it in their mind that we needed to organize the playroom, organize our bedroom, organize our closet. And we did all this organizing. And I realized that as this project went on, the other one was probably feeling a little left out, a little excluded. And I don't even think they could have articulated that to me. I really don't. But I think that in poking the bear that was causing their sense of disconnection, they were starting to see that they were getting some sort of touch point from not only their sibling, but then also from my reaction, right? So even though it was negative attention, because both my daughter and I wanted my son to just stop and knock it off. I think the most frustrating thing is seeing how well they get along. And so when he does that, it just is like, come on, I know you could be better than that. And taking a step back and reflecting on that, I'm like, you know what? If I had just taken 10 minutes from the project to say, all right, I'm going to go spend time with him for a little while. We're going to go do what he wants. I'll be back. And then doing that a little bit throughout the day probably would have done wonders in helping him feel more emotionally connected and completely minimizing all the squabbling that was happening. I'm not going to say that it would go away entirely, but I guarantee you if I had done that, things would have had a totally different outcome and our day would have felt entirely different. So if you see that your kids are having a hard time getting along, or if you are kind of nitpicking at people, it can mean really that you just need that emotional connection, that opportunity to spend time with other people or time by yourself in order to just soften things. And I don't mean this as escapism, especially when we're focusing on ourselves. We're not talking about just getting away from the feeling. It's about what can I do to make this more manageable by connecting back in with myself and the people that matter most to me, because it's going to help me refocus on what's really important and let the unimportant things fall to the wayside. And with that, it's about choosing small moments where you can prioritize your own well-being. I feel like, yes, how can we prioritize the well-being of the family? How can you connect with the people that you share your home with? But also, how are we going to make sure that when life is moving so fast or you're caught up in these loops and these patterns, how are you going to make sure that you make yourself a priority? Because if you're continuing to focus on everyone else's needs and making sure that they're in a good place emotionally, you have to make sure that you go back and come back to your own center and take care of yourself as well. Otherwise, there's not going to be much left to give and things are going to go off the tracks real fast. So I thought it would be helpful to talk about some of the ways that I do this for myself. These are quick and simple, but they're about meeting what I need and what feels nourishing and supportive to me. And it's taken a lot of time for me to get to know myself more clearly and to really understand, like, okay, these are the things that I find really supportive and energizing and what I need in moments like these. So yes, take these ideas and try them on for yourself, but also recognize that they may not be what you need. So get curious about what does feel really supportive to you in these moments where you need that emotional breathing room. It's going to look completely different from person to person. And so it's okay to recognize that and lean into it as well. So something that I love doing for myself that is definitely not for everyone, but I personally am an early riser. I'm just a morning person. And so there are days where I'll wake up before my alarm even goes off. And if I've got about 15, 20 minutes before I know I need to get moving, I will take advantage of that and push myself to get out of bed and make sure that I'm using that time to just set the tone for the day. I go downstairs, I brew a cup of tea, I sit on the couch, I look out the window with a cozy blanket wrapped around me. Like, it is the ultimate 15 minutes for me. Like this morning, the sun was coming up, but it was still quite dark out, and the full moon was up over the mountains. It was like the most beautiful view. And I think often about, like, I would have missed that if I just stayed in bed. I wouldn't have had that time to just sit with my thoughts for 15 minutes. And then eventually, one of the kids woke up, came down, we had some snuggles on the couch, and that was off to our morning. But like starting my day with that, as opposed to just dreading the day ahead of me, was a complete perfect way to support and nourish myself before I had to take care of anyone else. On the flip side, you might be someone who's a night owl and you're up past the kids' bedtime. And that's the time where you have some energy and space that you can put towards taking care of yourself, whether that's making time for a nice bath to unwind at the end of the day. Like, I don't know what that could look like for you, because I can't even begin to imagine what it's like to be someone who stays up late at night. But, what feels nourishing and supportive to you? How can you make time for that in your evening, as opposed to just doom scrolling on Instagram? Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's doing a crossword puzzle. I have no idea. But do something for you during that time, because that's when it's easier to do something for yourself uninterrupted, right? But there are also opportunities in the daytime where even if the kids are home, you have ways that you can build in time. Like for me, one of the ways that I make sure that I unwind is to prioritize a nighttime routine for myself, but it doesn't happen at my bedtime, because the kids go to bed and then basically I go to bed and I crash hard. So I, for example, would never get a nighttime skin routine in if I waited until the kids were in bed and expected myself to do it then. So something I like to do is usually set the kids up with some sort of activity, something they're doing by themselves before I get started cooking dinner. And I'll slip away, go do my nighttime skin routine right then and there. So I'll get my red light mask on. That's super calming. I'll put my legs up the wall. And in those 5 minutes that it takes me to wash my face, put on some comfy pajamas, put my legs up the wall, and get that red light mask done, I walk out of the bedroom feeling like a whole new person in just 5 minutes. And even if the kids wander in, they can see like mom's busy with something, they can ask what they need and then get on their way. Like that's just become kind of our routine. They know that that's how that works. And then I go downstairs and I cook dinner. So building it in these little pockets of time can be really meaningful as well. Another thing that I like to do is keep a weighted blanket at home. What can you do to just lie down under a weighted blanket, even have your kid just come and lie on top of you and get some extra hugs and kisses in. Like that can be so soothing to the body to have that weight on it. And it's just really calming to the nervous system. So building that in, putting on a weighted blanket and reading a book aloud to your child, like you're supporting you, but you're also supporting your child in that moment. So I hope that this helps even just get you thinking about the importance of creating that space for emotional breathing room. We need it not just every once in a while, we need it daily. And it really helps make sure that we're not only functioning better on a day-to-day basis, but that our family feels more cohesive and connected and tuned in to one another. I feel like it makes all the difference in the world, especially when life is feeling stressful or overwhelming or that's just moving too fast. And I know that it is the antithesis of what you're trying to do. But if you are especially in like a survival mode, it's more important than ever to say, okay, 15 minutes a day, I'm hitting pause. I am making time to create breathing room, and it makes a difference. So don't think that it has to be hours of your day. It can be mere minutes, and it makes all the difference. I would love to hear one small way that you plan on making space for that breathing room in your day. The easiest way to do that is to just visit the show on your podcast platform and add a comment or a review to say, hey, I listened to the episode about emotional breathing room. I'm so excited to try this in my day, and it is the best feedback ever. Not just because like, oh, I love hearing what you thought about the episode. No, what I love is hearing how these ideas make a real difference in your life, because that's why I'm doing it. So please take the time to do that. I love hearing from you. I love knowing how this show is making a difference in your homes. So if you have an extra minute or two, just go drop that comment or review. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now, next week, we are totally changing things up, and we are going to be talking about breaking all the productivity rules. I've had it, especially I feel like the start of the new year. My Instagram was just inundated with all the shoulds, all the must-dos for like cleaning your house and getting new planners ready. Yet I am throwing all that out the window. So if you are on the same journey as I am, that is definitely going to be the episode for you. Until then, have a great week and enjoy finding ways to add more emotional breathing room into your busy everyday life. Bye for now.